It was almost the end of our second full day in South Africa. It was a Saturday night, and I wanted to do what most red-blooded American guys would like to do. I wanted to eat an animal. I desired to eat something hard to find in the States. We found a restaurant called Arnold's that provided just that. The game plate I ordered had ostrich, which I had tried once back in college. It also had some warthog meat, which was pretty good, but had a weird texture. The gemsbok, however, was quite delicious. The plate was also supposed to have crocodile meat, but they accidentally gave me a second helping of warthog instead. Now I would like to share a cautionary tale. The next morning, Mary Pat and I decided to walk around the city to find something for breakfast. As we walked, we chatted about things we wanted to see and do while on this trip. Our stroll brought us up behind a boy who looked like he was in his late teens. He was walking slower, and rather than pass him up, we decided to slow our pace and stay behind him. Soon he turned off of the main street onto a less busy and less populated road. We kept chatting and followed him since this was the way to the good restaurants that we knew about. Once we were out of view of the busier street, the boy slowly turned around to face us. He said, "I just want the cell phone." He pointed to the phone in Mary Pat's hand. We must have looked confused because he repeated himself. When he did, I noticed that he had a gun in his right hand held at hip level. Mary Pat hadn't seen the gun yet, and I could tell she was about to start arguing with him or trying to talk him out of it. I said to Mary Pat, "Just give him your phone." At this point, she also saw the gun, and she handed it to him. He put it in his left pocket, put his gun in his right pocket, and walked back up the street in the direction we had just come. The incident shook us up, but we continued on the walk down the street and told a security officer who we'd come across. He listened to the information, but just suggested we go to the police station. We decided instead to sit down and gather our thoughts. We knew that the boy would be long gone by now, and so we discussed the pros and cons of going to the cops. We realized that it would be of no use. He was no longer in the area, and I really didn't want to spend a bunch of time at the police station answering a bunch of questions. Besides, I could only come up with a vague description of the guy. We ordered some food, and Mary Pat said that she had seen him interacting with another guy on the street just before the mugging. We figured that the other man was in charge or his backup. The interesting thing about this was that both Mary Pat and I had bags with us. My bag was full of money, my credit and debit cards, and my passport. I'm unsure what Mary Pat had in her purse, but the kid could have gotten away with much more than he'd requested. I'm glad he just wanted one phone. At dinner time, I discovered that South Africa has a Nando's. This is a chicken restaurant that is all over the UK. I discovered it years ago on one of my trips to Scotland. The peri-peri sauce that they put on their chicken is so good. I lied. That was lunch. For dinner, we would discover a little Mexican restaurant and order some pretty good tacos. Little did I know at the time, this trip was going to cause me to gain some serious weight. The next morning, as I was waiting for Mary Pat to join me for a late breakfast, I was bit by this little bee. I know what you're thinking. A bee would sting you, not bite you. But the bee didn't leave a stinger, and it didn't die. So I'm choosing to believe that it bit me. It hurt like a mother, but the pain went away about 3 minutes later. I guess bees in Africa are different. We went back to the Kloof Street house for breakfast. The last 2 days had had on and off rain, but today seemed to be bright and sunny. Mary Pat and I decided to go for a hike on Table Mountain, a flat-topped mountain forming a prominent landmark overlooking the city. It is a significant tourist attraction, with many visitors using the cableway or hiking to the top. Table Mountain National Park is the most visited national park in South Africa, attracting 4.2 million people every year for various activities. The mountain has 8,200 plant species. It forms part of the Table Mountain National Park and part of the lands formerly ranged by Ko-speaking clans. It is home to a large array of mostly endemic fauna and flora. As you can see, we decided to take the cable car up rather than hike from the bottom.
top of the world.
A posted sign read that the hike would take around 45 minutes to complete. We took our time, however, and it was more like 2.5 hours for us. Toward the end of our hike, the clouds started to roll back in. For dinner, we wanted to go closer to the ocean. We found a seafood restaurant called Ocean Basket. We would later learn that this is a seafood chain, but it was our first time eating there, and it was delicious. My eyes were bigger than my stomach, and I ordered the seafood platter for 2. They brought out a huge amount of food. I was unable to finish it. After our meal, we walked a block or 2 over to see the beach and ocean. I wish it had been earlier so that I could show you the beautiful view. The next morning, we woke up extremely early to get an Uber back to the airport. Cape Town had been a wonderful experience other than being mugged at gunpoint, that is. It was time to make our way to Zimbabwe to keep a promise to Pip. This would, in my opinion, be the most important part of our journey, the real reason we came to Africa. Next, we had about 2.5 hours to kill on our layover at the airport in Johannesburg. The best way I could describe this airport is that it is old and definitely needs updating. When we finally made it through customs and immigration at the Victoria Falls airport, our assigned driver was in the airport lobby. He was waiting to take us to our hotel. This is one thing that I'm thankful for on this trip, having handlers. Since this is both my and Mary Pat's first time in Africa, we really didn't know what to expect. Even though I'm a good traveler, it was nice to have my last name on a sign that was being held just out of security. It made me feel important. The hotel that our travel planner got for us was called Pioneers. It was pretty posh, especially after having stayed the last 3 nights in a simple hostel in South Africa. And this is the property. I'm thankful that no mosquitoes bothered me on this trip, but as a safety precaution, our beds were draped with the proper netting. The food at the hotel's restaurant was incredibly delicious. Over the next 3 days, we would be able to try so many of the chef's creations.